to record it.
Okay, so we haven't talked for over a year.
Yeah.
And you have done, it sounds like you've actually done really well.
I've done amazingly well.
Yeah, which is pretty incredible. I know you and I both know has a lot to do with the state of mind you were in, the decades that you were in that state of mind. So in relation to that, you have been in heaven, right? Yeah, and so you emailed me a couple weeks ago, and you're starting to sense this issue coming back, right?
Yeah.
Have you noticed that freedom that you had just vanishes? It's almost like you didn't even know it vanished.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because now your whole focus is in on what happens is your openness, the openness to just be present now has this background noise of what's your weight? What did you eat? You need to fix it. What size is my waist? How much do I weigh?
Yeah, and it seemed to creep up on me without me even noticing.
You don't even notice it, yeah.
It was almost too late that I was sort of back in the behavior.
That's not too late. I don't want you to think like that.
Right.
What this tells me is there's a condition, you could say there's an environment you weren't prepared for or you had a difficult time separating your concept, that body image concept. You had a hard time separating yourself from it. And so that's just a sign that you still hold some of these beliefs. You still believe them, right? Because if you didn't believe it just wouldn't, there would be no influence to it because it's an illusion, right? It's like if you knew something was a total fiction, complete lie, you would keep yourself separate from it. It would be like, oh, it's a nice concept or idea, but there's a lack of reality in it, and you wouldn't invest emotionally.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. A couple of things started happening around me. One was that friends dieting.
Okay, so the illusion with that is that they're going to reach the pearly gates and you're left behind.
Not sure. It's just that sickness of dieting. So I don't know.
So I'm going to say it again, and I want you to process this. Just keep this in mind. What's the benefit of dieting?
Yeah, well, it's really weird because I see these people and they're dieting and I know it's not going to work and I want to tell them, don't do it, it won't work. But somehow I just think it's the little crack in my mind somewhere. It's just seeped in because at the same time I've started without dieting, losing weight. And people have started commenting on that weight loss. And people are dieting and commenting on that weight loss.
Well,
and you warned me about this, but I think that's the root of why.
Well, you believe. Okay, so it would. So I'm just gonna. Here's what you need to realize. Right? Here's what you need to see clearly, because if you didn't believe in the concept of thin supremacy, it would not influence you in any way. So to some degree, right, you can say it's significantly different, right, from where you were when you first reached out, right, and you had binged and purged like 12 times that day. Things are very different, right? However, the fantasy and it has to exist for you to get anything emotionally out of a compliment. Like you have to actually believe there's something special. I am special. So there's something, like I said, you're attaching yourself to it rather than staying separate from it. Like seeing that, oh, they're basically projecting this onto me, not realizing I don't believe it, right?
Also, body checking, prep back, and all these things.
Yes, of course.
Time.
Yeah.
So I was completely unconcerned about any fat on my body, and now suddenly I've started checking again.
Correct. Yes. Everything comes back. Everything. I know everything that's happening. Every single detail starts coming back. It's just probably not as intense, but it's still there. So let me go back to what I was telling you. This is really important, what I'm telling you right now. You need to see this. All of what you're saying to me is like, well, yeah, of course. If you're getting anything, if you're emotionally getting benefit from it, you're going to have to keep on body checking. Can you see why you'd have to body check?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course you're going to need a body check because you think you're getting something from it. You actually like what you're getting from it. To the point where you want to hold on to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you're like, yeah, of course you're body checking. I would too under the circumstance. Are you kidding me? Anybody would. Because you're getting the illusion, okay? It's an illusion. It's a figment. You actually think it's real. Therefore, your brain says, yes, this is good. Right? So if someone were to say, oh my God, Ramen, you're like amazing. Look at your arms. And I would be like, yeah, that's right. See these arms. Right? Then I would have to do something about it. Keep it. Focus on it. I would have to think about it. Right?
Oh,
I don't care, but to me, it's like, oh, they're projecting some form of superiority, some symbolic superiority onto me. I don't want it. I don't care. I don't give a shit. I don't care if my triceps are smaller. I don't care if I don't care. I don't want it because I don't want to think about it. I don't want to devote myself to it. Right? So.
Yeah, when they're saying that I want to keep it, so the penny dropped like a brick inside. Yes, that's it.
I want to hold it because you actually believe. So the only reason you would do that is if you believe it's real. So what I'm trying to describe to you, I'm giving you a description. If you didn't believe it was real, you'd be like, and not only that, but if you were aware, this comes at a very high cost because as soon as you believe it's real and you want it, you lose all that freedom. Your level of consciousness just plummeted. Because now you're feeling, but we can sit here and go, well, why are you believing it's real? Well, there has to be some feeling of inadequacy that you have for you to be attracted to holding on to it. If you didn't feel any sense of inadequacy, why would you hold on to something that comes at such a high cost? That is an illusion. It's fiction. It's projected fiction onto you. Did your body's ability to lose its own body fat, given the environment of no stress, does that have anything to do with you?
Nothing.
So why are you claiming it? You're claiming it then, right? So if you're holding on to it, you're claiming it. It's me. There is the narcissism. Therein lies. So you had to have been in a lower state of survival for this to have been appealing or even had gratification, right? Again, there's no judgment to that because we're human. We're human, and that part of our nature will never go away. We just have to question, where are you susceptible? Where are you, where is your discernment around not as clear, right? And again, so if someone said to you, you're going to gain 20 pounds right now, and it's going to be permanent. Tell me how that would feel to you.
Right now, talking to you, okay, fine, but obviously not.
Well, what's the benefit if that were to happen and you were to allow it?
Just the freedom of not being in that horrible place of.
So you have that clear, right? So the work we did a year ago, that was very clear to you. I can get out, and you had said in your email, I have visualized, myself going into that space of what did you say? Freedom on a park bench and a big body and experiencing my surroundings. Instead of experiencing my body, I'm experiencing the surroundings that it is allowing me to witness, whether it's visual, auditory, sensory, all of the sensory that we have to witness this planet, right? You stop being turned in and self-centered and you go out and experience. And then it keeps you aware that you're not the body, you're just witnessing all of what it's providing you, right? So you get that part. That's why that came so quick to you when I asked the question, what would happen if you had to gain weight? You got that. You did that. Okay. So part of this recovery, and this is where we have worked in the past, and you told me about this. I was like, well, sometimes you can hear it intellectually, but you have to be willing to surrender this in the moment it's occurring. You have to say they're going to be thinner. They're going to be happier. Because they believe that thought, they can have it. It's not worth it to me. It's not worth the isolation, the issues with food, the constant fear of what you're eating, and then the sensitivity to over consuming bad food and then going on and off, all of that misery, total misery. They might be okay with that misery. Are you okay with that misery?
Absolutely not.
No, you're done. You did it. So,
and it was creeping back. I've been really busy, been away, don't have got any food in the house, or not much. And that old behaviour of like, I won't keep the cupboards empty and then I won't eat anything. And yesterday I went shopping and I bought all good things to eat and filled my fridge and filled my cupboards. Because it's that insidious creep. It's just creeping in like little tentacles coming back.
That's because you're getting gratification, right? Can you see that? Like, I want to keep this. So if you want this to go away, what has to happen?
It's tough. Yeah, it just doesn't matter compared to.
You have to let it go.
What's the price?
So this becomes an active process. This becomes an active releasing. You're willing to gain weight, but you have to be willing to let go of thinness. So you have to be able to do it all, right? And that's when I talk about full recovery. Have I gone over, I in my head at this point, and again, as I evolve in my own awareness of how to explain this, it might change. But right now, I think there's, 4 or 5 points of recovery. I can't remember. But have I gone over those with you?
You have, yes.
Yeah.
I can remember.
Permanently surrendering the thinner body. We did that immediately. Permanently surrendering it forever. You'll never be that. And simultaneously, you have to accept what you are currently, in the now, in the present, all of the baggage, all of the discomfort, all of the saggy boobs, the skin layers, the whatever. The third step is the willfulness to gain weight. And, that was the second. That's really kind of where we went after about a week of talking, right? Because you were good with where you were at, and then you started noticing that tension coming up because you were afraid to gain further. And so that's
such a good memory, Robin.
Right?
That from a year ago.
I know, it was huge. It was such a big deal for you. And that was really transformative for you because it was probably the first time you've ever given yourself grace and self-love and knew, you know what, if that's what happens, I'm a good person and I'd rather that than live in hell in this concept of thinness. So that's just part 3. We have more. There's 5. Okay. So part 4 is the acceptance of weight loss without attaching to it. Willfully separating yourself from that. Again, it's almost like people are projecting a filter on you that says, she's good, she's good. She's bad, she's bad. So when you start losing, or the body, separate from you, loses body fat, people are going to project onto you this, she's superior, we're proud of her. And you have to completely not internalize it. You have to see that it's their belief systems, it's brainwashing, they're projecting onto you, that it's really just a belief system and it's not real. It has nothing to do with you. That's where you're at. There's a 5th step. What do you think it is? Just think about it. So permanently surrendering, being thinner than you are. Staying present with where you're at all times. Willing to gain weight infinitely. Completely detaching from the concept of grandeur with thinnerness. You know, the illusion that you're better or superior from it. So even if you do get compliments that you don't see it as real, you can be gracious and be like, oh, thanks, because you're living in the culture. You don't have to reject the culture. You just have to not become it. Right?
Yeah.
And then 5 is willing to regain any weight that's been lost.
I knew it was that, and I just didn't say.
See, I wish you would have said it. I wish you would, because that would have been like really like your own wisdom. This is your own wisdom of this insanity coming through. You didn't need me to tell you that. You knew it inherently.
I didn't.
Yeah. See, that's the truth of someone who has suffered enough. You know, it's like you can't care about anything. You can't care about thinner, fatter, regain, re-loss. It doesn't matter. Because the body's going to go through this dynamic metabolic shift as you age, as you change climates, as you travel. It's all the time. Do you really want to care about your weight? Do you really want to care about your weight?
No.
Then surrender the grandeur, because that's what's sucking you back in, is this idea that you're successful. People are looking up to you. These people have no idea. Your friends or these people that are dieting, do they have any idea the level of suffering that dieting has brought you? And this concept of weight loss and healthy, clean eating? Do they have any idea what type of trauma that you were willing to commit suicide multiple times, had to be checked into a psych unit, had to take all these medications? Do they have any idea?
None whatsoever. No.
If they did, would they be like, wow, you look really great. You've lost weight. Would they do that?
No, I'm sure they wouldn't.
They would be like, why is it even, well, first of all, they would not be living the bullshit they're living in, but they would not want to do that because it was like trauma for you. It was horrible. Like worthy of suicide. Without question, suicidal worthiness.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you found out someone else was living in that horror, wouldn't you be like, I don't know, I totally get why they kill themselves. I feel that way too. Tons of compassion for it. It is horrible. So you're the only one that knows that truth within your heart, and who's going to honor that?
Yeah, only me.
Only you knows what that has done to your life. And I think what needs to happen for you is a real solid divorce with it. Like, you haven't quite divorced it. I think you've been separated from your body image. You're like, when do you sign the paperwork of complete and total divorce forever, permanently, forever, for all lifetimes?
Yeah. Yeah, the decree absolute.
Absolute, infinite, infinity, permanence, bam. And what that means is you have served your jail time. Okay? And you're allowed to, at this point in time, to live in any body, in any type of body. And it doesn't matter for you. You don't have that lesson to be learned anymore. So whether you believe in karma or not, or reincarnation or not, doesn't matter, but let's pretend. For the rest of any lifetime, it does not matter the physicality of the body you're going to be in. It's not your personal lesson to be learned. You learned it. You are graduating. You get a certificate.
Oh, Robin, I'm so glad I contacted you. That we've had this talk.
You know, I have the same certificate.
Yeah.
I did it. It's amazing when you look back and damn, I survived that. That's like a PhD in horror.
Yeah.
Right? Think about what if you could give yourself a level of education and a level of knowledge. I mean, think about what it took for you to know that 5th step before you even said it. PhD status, girlfriend. Yeah, to the point where you could probably talk to someone in that state of mind and help them.
And I am, it's fine, put all the weight back on, it's fine.
Right? Who gives a shit? And does it, and you know what? We don't have to make that happen. Why don't you just go back to eating to hunger and eating just at that table of abundance permanently forever? And if the body continues to lose weight, who gives a shit? Who really cares?
I've learned so much this last year. So much.
I know. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. On so many levels, but, and that's, I was just so confounded. Why? What's going wrong?
So I think you'll get more if you contemplate on your own. Because, you know, I'm just sitting here telling you this and that and this and that.
Yeah.
When you sit in a silent place, you could say, oh, I did like the attention. I did like, it made me feel like I had friendships. It was a weird, again, that's the animal brain. Okay. That's that animal need that will always be there. So we can't get rid of that. So I like to visualize. One way I've been trying to verbalize it or to explain this to people. Imagine you're kind of in the center of this nice, calm body of water. And you can do anything you want in that calm body of water. You can dive down. You can float on your back. You can do anything. Freedom. You can move in places. And on the outsides of this calm body of water are like, there's rivers and there's these like whirly little vortexes that can pull you down. And there's all of this. There's one that goes down a cliff on the outsides, right? But in the center is this beautiful state of calm, fluid ease. Are you visualizing this with me?
I am. Yeah.
And there are times you're gonna go out, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm being pulled. Why am I being pulled? And you can look out and go, oh, it's because I care about what they think.
Yeah.
So, and then you get pulled in a different direction. Oh, it's because I was expecting something different. So it's anytime you want to control, anytime you want to change reality, control reality without grace, right? The grace is what keeps you in the fluid space. Anytime you become rigid around something, you're going to go one direction, right? And again, those outskirts are our animal nature. This is reality, right? And so over the course of, for me, for 20 years, it's been a practice of how to stay in the center, how to go. And then at times it's like I go out on those outskirts and I do kind of like to kick my legs against the river. There's the river. I'm going to turn around and try to swim out of it. You know, it's this animal nature we have within us, and then this, you know, this Buddhist concept of detaching ourselves from it and letting it happen, letting it be. The only way to stay in that space is to, first of all, accept that you're going to accept death at all times, because death is what that whole entire nature is wired to avoid. Right? Look at just animal nature. It's wired to avoid death. That's the whole point. Okay.
I remember being in it, and it felt like life and death.
And it does, and it works. You did think about everything you did to not die. I mean, it is crazy amazing. So, you know, you're living in the waterfall, you could say that. I'm living trying to climb out of a waterfall. You'll never escape that. You know.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're stuck in that state of mind. So, you know, you've been living in that nice, stable body of water on the center, inside the center, right? And then you started getting off on this. And you know what? Now you know what that feels like. Oh, getting gratification from someone else's opinion. Oh, that's going to suck you down into that animal nature, because now you got to keep the gratification. Well, you can get positive reinforcement from anything around you, but the only way to not go down there is to be willfully letting it go as it's occurring.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want what I get from that river.
Yeah.
So even though you're getting, something is coming from that, you don't have to go down the river anymore. You can go, no thanks. I'm going to stay in this nice area body of water. You know, and sometimes a huge wave comes over. Like your mom dies, right? It's like, that's for me. I'm in my little body of water and all of a sudden I have to put my dog down, right? And it's okay to be an animal. It's okay to lay there and all of a sudden a huge wave just goes all over your face and you get sucked down to the bottom and you gotta come back up.
It's 5 o'clock.
Oh, sorry.
It's 10 a.m. here. It's 5 o'clock in the UK. Right? I'm really trying to explain this whole concept of how to come out of that survival. And you just learn, you got to learn and figure it out. And that's, to me, that's like, you give yourself grace, first of all, because you can't get rid of that part of your brain. You can't get rid of that. It's evolved over millennia. You can't, what are you going to do? All of a sudden decide you're not going to respond to it? Well, that takes practice. It's a practice.
Yeah.
In certain areas you've never been to before. So how are you going to know? Oh, right there, there's like a, you know, there's a tree limbs underneath and I'm going to get caught under the tree limbs because there's a river right here and I don't know it. And I'm going to die. You know what I'm saying? Just visualizing that reality of our animal brain and how we're sensitive to it and what we're sensitive to. You know, I really appreciate Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I know I probably talked to you about this way back when, but because he made it so basic. I love the basicness of how he describes it. You know, food and water. You're toast if you want to mess with that. You're screwed, right? Unless you're evolved and can meditate out of it. That's like fasting, right? Then there's the environmental safety, my home, my shelter, the car, you know, how we navigate our environment, you know, and that takes just humility around what you're willing to live with. The third one is probably the most sensitive, right? Because that's the most prevalent issue we have today isn't our food and water and shelter. It's am I a welcome part of this community? Do I have something to give? You know, and so you could say maybe that's where you need more like solid, what's the word? You need to really solidify that within yourself.
Yeah.
It's the willing, you've got to be willing to be seen as inferior. You have to be okay. You're not good enough, you know, that way because if you're not, you're you're going to be very sensitive in that area, right? Because it's survival of the fittest. To that type of narcissism, and the fittest is never fit enough. You're not rich enough. You're not tall enough. You don't have, you know, the right boobs.
Yeah, I am a lot better in that since talking to you. I remember talking to you about things that happened at work, and I felt about myself.
Yeah, and and just being real with it. What is the truth?
I really took that on board, and things. I am in a lot better place now.
Yeah.
When I was, I kind of been slipping into a
well,
was it lovely warm?
Well, we worked on the willingness to be rejected because of your weight. We worked on that, you know, but we didn't have enough time to go in on what are you going to do when you start losing weight and people start giving you gratification. I mean, this might be the first time you've now had to go through the full circle of recovery. You know, so it would be understandable that you might not have that discernment yet. I like to call it a radar. You know? And now you do, right? Because you had to go through this to go, oh, I really do have to kind of continuously surrender. It's not just surrender back then. I have to continuously surrender to the idea that I'm always willing to gain weight, even if I'm losing weight. I'm always willing to not take it serious. If you knew you were going to regain whatever weight you lost, would you have taken ownership of their like positivity towards you? No, because you knew it's only temporary, right? Yeah. It would be like if you were having chemotherapy and were beginning to look emaciated, would you get all gratified knowing that as soon as chemo's over, hopefully you can get back to eating food and you're going to gain some weight back? You see what I mean? It's like, of course not. Why would you attach to some thinness that's temporary? Well, it's always going to be temporary. I am, you know, I think for me, what has been so powerful in my continuous long-term 20-year recovery is the fact that at all times I am so aware of how horrible that life was for me. I killed it. I literally committed suicide to it. And the reason it is dead and continuously dead is because I am continuously accepting 500 pounds if I had to. I've got it so down pat, I don't even think about it anymore. I would literally rather cut my arm off than go back to that space. I'd rather shave my head. I'd rather go blind. You know, there's like the physical, to me, the physical body and the condition of it, irrelevant. I'm conscious.
I really thought I was there, but yeah, I think you're right. There's a vestige of it.
Yeah.
Still.
You needed to go through this, though, to witness this. Like, oh, I really have to sign divorce papers. Permanently.
Yeah.
Tell me how that's going to feel. Just go there. I will never, ever again be held to whatever condition the body's in, whether it's thin and hot or fat and ugly. Does it really matter?
No, absolutely brilliant. It feels amazing. It feels brilliant.
Oh, yeah. And it becomes even more profound. Like, I am not the body. I'm not someone's opinion about the body either. I mean, just go into what it would take for you to become someone's opinion about the body. Once again, that's a sign that your third hierarchy of need is completely void. There's nothing, it's not fulfilled. But once you fill it up with, I'm alive and I'm human and I have all these human, beautiful qualities, that's good enough for me. If it's good enough for you, it's not fake. It's true. It's built in. It's hardwired, right? No one can take that away from you. No one can make it better. It's all you. It's all independent, right? It's not something you choose and then you work on, right? It just exists. So if that's what fills that sense of I am lovable, what needs to be done right now?
Nothing.
You get to swim around the pool in the center and play and wave at people who are like trying to swim out of the river, and you can be like, you can do it! As you're floating on your back, like, and people are like, God, I wish I could just not care like she doesn't.
Since last summer, I started to do some regular exercise. I started with a personal trainer, and I was so weak, physically weak. I think my muscles were just wasted. This is about 10 months after I first spoke to you. And I've started to get really physically strong and really enjoy doing exercise. But I think in a way it's kind of contributed to the malaise I was looking into.
Oh, yeah.
Bodies on display and people are very concerned about how they look in their back proportions.
So you might have just transferred some of these issues at that point and not seen it.
Yeah.
You know, you're still seeking.
It's wonderful to feel physically strong and have that energy.
Yeah, it's part of just enjoying the body.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I think it has put me in an environment where I've been exposed to the thin supremacy mindset.
Well, the fitness supremacy, which is pretty pervasive. The idea that you are your health and fitness is also very distorted, right? Because really, are you? Is that what you're about? Is that what your life is about?
No.
Do you see how that's still self-centered? That's still self-preserving. It's still identifying by the condition of the body. It's just in a different way. That's a common transfer. You know, you're getting relief. It's incredibly relieving to not have to have the shame and guilt about your body fat, but to transfer it to a new condition, it does hide all this stuff. And I'm not surprised then you would actually have these issues still, right? That you're still swimming along the fringes of it, right?
Yeah.
Because you kind of like it. You like there's something you're getting out of it. You have to see that. Again, it's like you came out from the waterfall, but you're certainly hanging out at the edges of it.
Yeah, well, otherwise I wouldn't be binging and throwing up again.
You got it. Okay, that's first. You got it. So yeah, you like I said, it's better than your face being in the center of the waterfall, but you're still hanging out there as if it still does something. Like, it's so important. You have to really think why you're still doing it. What is it that you're not willing to let go of? What is it? Because the only reason you would hang out in such a dangerous zone, a risky area, and be attracted to it is if you didn't believe the fantasy that's being sold there.
No, it's definitely, I was starting to become enamored of the idea of being thin again.
Is healthy. Well, and it's not just that, it's a concept of healthy and fit, and that's kind of a new variety of body image. Well, it's not new. It's been going on since Jane Fonda, but you know, it's really radicalized in that area, and that was kind of where I sat. I sat in the whole concept of thin and fit. Partly because a natural athletic ability I had, and the body, not me. It was just born inherent with the body. People think I work out all the time. I don't work out anymore. This is all residual impact. But then again, years of training people. I was a trainer for 14 years. So, you know, so I appreciate the human body, but when it becomes who you are, you're no longer, you're not floating anymore. You haven't been floating for a while. It's a perception of floating relative to how bad it was. You're still kind of on that edge. The goal in mind is to be completely removed from it. And you would never do that again. You're like, yeah, I don't go that way. There's a horrible waterfall. You're going to go down. I don't want it. But there's gold. There's gold at the bottom. I don't want any gold. So for you kind of still want the gold. That's why you're hanging out at the fringes of it. Does that give you a good visual of what that is?
It does.
Yeah, and if you didn't believe in it, you're right. If you didn't think there was gold down there, you wouldn't be purging and binging.
No.
So remember, at the beginning of this session, you're going to hear me describe it. You still believe the fantasy. There's an illusion that's still there. You wouldn't be sucked in if you didn't believe it. So you still believe in it. Yeah, that's what that is. So you have to see that it's just a lie. Someone lied a long time ago about the gold there. Has anybody ever reached gold down there? And if they did they survive?
No.
Yeah, their whole life is basically about that. They've skipped everything else. All the possibilities have been completely blacked out because you're so focused. You're going down the rabbit hole. You can't. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really helpful. I'm glad I mentioned that as well. Yeah.
Well, you can feel it. You can sense it. I think if your will is to fully recover from this, you kind of have to. If you don't bring some of that truth out, then you're holding on to it still. You know, and some of that is out of fear. Like, I don't know who I am if I don't do this. Like, it's always been part of my life is to chase some concept or some fantasy. So if I don't have a fantasy to chase, what am I going to do with myself?
Yeah.
You know, and so it's like you have to completely change your paradigm. It's like a shift of how you are.
And sitting here reflecting on it, which is something that I don't seem to be able to do on my own as well.
Well, it certainly helps to have someone go.
I can almost feel the mania that was starting to creep in. I was becoming a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if manic's the right word, but.
No, that is. It's survival. It's crazy train. I call it the crazy train.
Overexcited and a bit hyped.
Yeah, it just is. It's so funny. It's funny. You need to see it as like, oh, there's the animal in me. I don't want it to be active anymore. I'm done. That's the hard part. Is it's a form of suffering. Survival mode wouldn't feel like suffering if there was a bear that you get away from. There's a beginning and there's an end. With this, it is perpetual. It's a trap. You are trapped in it. You can't get out because it's specific to our culture. It's you're being triggered by our cultural belief system. You're a worthless piece of shit if you're not thin. You're only seen as beneficial if you're healthy and you're working on your fitness. And oh my God. And so can you see it just never ends. There's no end. There's no beginning. There's no end. And there's no edges to it. It's just constant threat all the time. Yeah, modern day problems, man.
Buying into it again.
Yeah, and part of it is because we don't really have the experience of a real life or death threat to compare it to, right? So you've never really been threatened. So you're not seeing that this is irrational. Why am I latching onto this like I'm going to die when I clearly am not dying? You know, you don't have that relative comparison.
Yeah.
You know, so people don't see how cognitively distorted they are. Because they have, and this is why so many people talk about, I had a near-death experience and it completely changed my way of being. Well, yeah, because now you know. Yeah, and not only that, but it's like, oh, I got hit by a car and I lost my legs and it changed my life forever. Well, of course it did physically. But they're talking about perceptual change. Like, what? Like, what do you're starting to question what's the point of life? What is the point of being here? What am I here for? Why did I survive that? What's the freaking point? Is it really about hating on a perfectly good functioning body and micromanaging it to the point where you think it sucks? You know? Is that the point? Is that what you're supposed to do? Are you supposed to focus on your fitness?
Oh my God.
It's so myopic, right? It's very much survival symptomatic, right? Because that's how survival works. Whoosh, tunnel vision. So,
yeah, definitely.
And so it's like, why do that to yourself? So remember when I said a little bit ago, the key here is that you have to accept your death. You have to actually go through a form. Like, what is it going to be like to die? What are you going to have to surrender when the Grim Reaper is there and you know it? You're going to have to surrender not just the body, but your whole concept of it, identity about it. Your whole life, who you think you are, your name goes away. You have to get rid of every single aspect of me when you die.
You know, talking to you, I'm almost glad that I've had a few, not very many, about 3 or 4 episodes of the bulimia, the binging and purging, because it made me contact you and it made me really look seriously, because I could have gone on like this, if I hadn't binged and purged, I could have gone on like this with getting back into that sick way of thinking without acting out on it, and just been miserable without even knowing what was going on.
Yeah, well, you don't have a real understanding of full recovery to recognize you're still miserable. I don't know if that makes sense. Like I said, you're not suicidal, but you're still miserable. You just don't know it. Because relative to that, this is much better. But what you're not aware of is there's a whole totally open space you haven't even looked at yet because you're still hanging out at this location.
Yeah.
You haven't left the location. You're still there. So you can see why you're going to be sensitive to relapse because you're not recovered.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're functioning. You're a more functional. Yeah, it's like saying I'm a recovered alcoholic, but I'm still an alcoholic because you're still there.
Yeah.
You're just not drinking. You're a dry drunk. You still want, you still yearn, you still hanging out, you still have those feelings, you still don't, you are what I'm directing you and have directed you to do is leave. Leave forever. Do you really need someone to convince you to leave this?
When you say you're not drinking, but you're still like, it's all still there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's part of the recovery process. So There's nothing wrong been done here. And I would agree with you. You kind of, the thing about this recovery, the recovery process is suffering is the way to get out, right? I know for me, it had to get bad. And it had to be so horrible that I was willfully surrendering my existence to God, right? To anything. And I went through a process to prepare for my suicide. And it was very humble, and it was very tragic, and there were, before I went there, I had self-pity and loathing and life sucks, but after that, it opened up this whole new space of contemplation, again, which was in total humility and sorrow and grief, but at the same time, this, like, if there is a chance, pleading to God or anything that might be bigger than me, of something different. It's just this space opened up to me, and I never left it, right? So for you, I could say I went through what you just went through. It just so happened to be I did it in like really intense time.
Concentrated period.
Oh yeah, it was like very concentrated horror story, and so I didn't necessarily have the grace to take my time. So you're in a position where you can take your time. I was also a child. I was 20. Your brain isn't fully developed, so it was permanent, and it was permanently going to be this way forever. There was no foresight of anything. So I also do feel when someone is an adult, they have a degree of foresight. There's not as much pressure to do it right now. Unless you're completely, as suicidal.
Yeah.
And you can look back and go, well, when I worked with her, I did what I felt like I was capable of, and the rest I repressed. Right? There was you repressed it.
Yeah.
You know how I could tell?
Because I didn't get in touch again. I just appeared off.
Yeah, usually that's the point people don't want any more help. Because you're not going to take it.
That myself. I was thinking there's something not quite right about this, but I'm not sure what
I'm done. I can't face anymore. I'm good. I still want, there was still a wanting, and that stuff is, it takes a very evolved level of willfulness to tell complete and total truth about it all. And so you've done enough on your own and done this on your own enough that you know how to snake out. And that's what that is. I did it. I did it too. When I went and got help, I guarantee you did this when you got help. Is you picked and chose what you were willing to do and what you weren't willing to do. What you're willing to tell them about, what you're not going to tell them about, because you're not done yet. Yeah, I did the same thing. Yeah, I'm so much healthier. I don't binge and purge, but they didn't know I was working out for 2 hours. And if I did tell them I was working out, it was because I was healthy now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's such a lie. It's like, duh. You can see it now in hindsight. You're like, oh yeah, you're just using exercise to purge.
I remember when I first came to you and reached that point where I thought, there's no hiding, you've got to speak to this woman because she's not going to give you any crap and she won't let you get away with anything.
Well, if you want to recover, you have to do it for yourself, but this is really important. It's like,
I reached that point of willingness to contact you because I kind of knew what I was going to get because I've been watching so many of your videos.
Oh, good. Well, you were ready to face the truth, and that's really important.
Yeah.
So someone might come to me and want my help, but they're not there yet. They're not going to talk about everything that's actually existing. They're going to go into denial, repression. They're not going to bring it up because, one, they think I'm going to judge them. Okay. Two, they're not done yet. There's still hope to be thin, So, and that's where recovery just goes, it's better. I'm not judging it. To me, that's I think it's all much better. It's all beneficial. There just comes a point where you have to go into yourself and ask yourself, what's the truth? And Am I willing to surrender this? And if you're not willing to yet, then you need to stay where you're at and suffer some more. Like you just said, I'm so glad I went through that. I know, right? Because it's just part of the process.
Yeah.
It's like a natural evolution. It's like a learning curve. You're figuring it out. You got to fail to say, oh, I really do have to face this. Otherwise, I'm going to stay right here in this little whirly little spot that goes nowhere. Yeah, and you have to get miserable again. You do. And I think that misery is very beneficial.
It came as a shock. I was shocked. But what the hell?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Okay.
Why is this going on?
Because you haven't surrendered it.
Yeah.
It's going to surface at some point, right?
Obviously, now I'm speaking to you. Yeah, I can see it now talking to you.
Mm-hmm. So that's why it's like these points of recovery, all of it has, full recovery is when it's all done. When you're completely done with all of it in all forms.
Yeah, not done, not completely done.
Yeah. And you know what? Just be truthful with yourself. The more truthful you are with yourself, even in like, I'm not willing to give that up. Just, I still have this issue, but I don't want to give it up yet. Just telling that truth will, it just disarms this process because you are aware of what you're doing. You're not repressing it, avoiding it, denying it, putting it in a dark place, wondering why you're still suffering, why this is bubbled up again. You're like, well, of course it's bubbled up again. I chose not to address this, and I still want what I want from it. So I am going to, it's my choice. It's a choice. I am choosing to do this because I really want something out of it. Then now it's okay. Now you're at least balanced, right?
Know what you're dealing with.
Yeah, it's like and you can laugh at yourself, and not take it so serious. And not taking it so serious, in effect, kind of releases it.
Yeah, I can see that. Because I was taking it very, very seriously when I sent you that email. I was like, oh, help.
Yeah, and this is where I believe that it is so enabling for people to call this a disease. No, it's not. It's a choice. It's a choice. And we're calling survival mode a disease now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, this is hardwired evolutionary survival mechanisms. You just attached it to wanting your body to perform for the sense of lack inside of you. As if the body's looks and performance is going to make you a better person, And you have to be willing to say, I'm not going to rely on my body. I'm not going to rely on anything anymore. Because I have to address this feeling of lack that I believe is in here. The feeling of I'm not good enough. I can't handle it. That has to get addressed. If you don't, you're going to be constantly seeking another form of armor, right? To protect you, to keep you feeling better. And, that's the whole concept of body image is of armor. It's hiding the sense of limit, the sense of lack and weakness that you feel about yourself. So if you want to stop using this concept of armor, well, you might want to ask if you really are sucky. Question that belief.
If you really are
a bad person, lacking, weak, incapable, inferior. Yeah. Are you really inferior? And what if you are? Is there something wrong with that to where you have to pretend you're bigger than you are with this armor?
Yes, about being human.
Yeah. What's wrong with you as a human? Really? Is there something wrong with you?
I got that from you last time I spoke to you. A real sense of that. What you said before.
Yeah, you have to question these ideas of what you're supposed to be.
You know, it has had a big impact and a lot more chilled, I guess, at work and stuff. I don't just come to things with a much more relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm rubbish, then I'm rubbish. I'll be good at everything. And
Yeah, because you're doing the best you can, and if it is rubbish, you kind of need to know. You know, it's okay.
You helped me a lot with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's 5:30.
It's 10:30 here.
Can I book another session with you?
Yes.
In a couple of weeks' time.
Yes, let's do that.
See how.
Yeah, I'm curious as to how you're doing, but like I said, you really have to be truthful with yourself. Just be truthful with yourself, because that's ultimately what all I'm doing is saying, let's talk about the truth here. And I definitely have relative perspective, so I can kind of see where you're at and kind of give you a grasp of where you're at, but you have to go into the truth. And even if it's scary or you don't want to admit it, or you're like, oh, I just have to, if you can just admit it to yourself, it is releasing. To just say, you know what? I do think that being fit makes me superior. You know, not that you believe that, but that's an example.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give it up. And then you're like, okay, so I shouldn't be alarmed that I have these issues or feel bad.
Yeah.
Because the issues come with it. It's the risk. It's kind of the cost of being body oriented.
Yeah.
You have to focus on your body. You can't, that's it. You know. Okay.